Good evening and welcome to the November 14th meeting for the Board of School Trustees for Fort Wayne Community Schools. We will begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And our roll call of members.
Good evening, Steve Corona, 5th District.
Hello, Jennifer Mathias, District 2.
Maria Norman, Member at Large.
Raleigh Booker, District 4.
And I am Ann Duff, Member at Large. And to my left is Angela Filler, the Clerk of the Board, and our Superintendent, Dr. Daniel. Okay, we have no awards recognitions this evening, so we will move on to our consent agenda, which includes the approval of the minutes for our regular meeting from October 24th, our vouchers and payroll, and the personnel report. Is there a motion on the floor for approval?
I move approval.
Thank you, Raleigh.
Second.
Thank you, Jennifer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Dr. Daniels, is there anything you wanted to mention on the personnel report?
I do not have anything at this time. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. No old business. We'll move on to our new business. Our first recommendation is that the board approve the acceptance of a grant from the IDOE Career Readiness Grant, 3E grant, via Central Indiana Education Service Center in the amount of $270,000 to be spent over the 2022-23 and 2023-24 school year. Last spring, CIESC applied for the grant and was awarded $3.9 million to support 7 districts in Indiana toward the journey of career exploration and experience. Fort Wayne Community Schools was chosen as one of these districts. This grant allows districts to partner with CIESC and Ford NGL to reimagine what their schools can look like when using a community-connected approach to preparing students for their future. This competitive grant was written by CIESC. Shanita Bolton, Director of K-12 College and Career Readiness, is available to answer any questions. Is there a motion on the floor for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Maria. Any questions for Shanita? I know we've started this process somewhat. Can you talk about what we've done up to this point so far?
Yes, we began this work actually with the Portrait of a Graduate, which was phase 2. And then once we were into phase 2, we received the grant. So we have taken a step back to phase 1 while still moving with phase 2. That was a visitation for us going to Akron, Ohio to see their work and what they offer, as well as members of Ford NGL coming to Fort Wayne Community Schools, visiting all of our high schools, also Anthony's Career Academy. We also went to AMP Lab. They visited 2 of our middle schools as well as 2 elementary schools.
Awesome. Any other questions? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Indiana Literacy Cadre. It is recommended that the board approve the acceptance of the Indiana Literacy Cadre from the University of Indianapolis in the amount of $100,000 per academic year until June 2024, supported by the Center of Excellence in Leadership of Learning, CEL, at the University of Indianapolis in the Indiana Department of Education. The Literacy Cadre is working to help Indiana's students read proficiently by the end of 3rd grade. Adams Elementary School will partner with Indiana Literacy Cadre through the development of instructional, coaching, curricular alterations, and an increased understanding of effective pedagogical practices. Dr. Joe Brown, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment, and Allie Holland, Principal of Adams Elementary, will be available to answer questions. Is there a motion on the floor for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Raleigh. Any questions?
I have a question. Can you explain to me the difference, what this is doing differently from what everything else that we're doing in the district?
Hi, I think I can hopefully answer this. At Adams, we were actually given an additional coach. So we have 2 coaches. The IDOE has sponsored one of our coaches who just focuses on K-1-2 literacy. So they really just come and support what we are already doing. but with the science of reading behind it.
So it's basically just to support one extra coach in the building?
That's one aspect of it, but then it's also the PL that the coach receives as well as myself for the entire 2-year process. We also get a coach from the state to support our work as well.
And so previously, the coach that you had covered a certain grade.
Yeah, so previously, it was K5, and so now she can only work K2, and so we have an additional coach the district awarded us for 3-5.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
But before you go, before you vote, what are some of the, I will say, unique things you're doing right now at Adams Elementary that maybe have been inspired by some of this coaching, maybe or maybe not?
Okay.
But if you could express those.
Sure. So we're doing twofold. I came and spoke to you all at the beginning of the school year, but one very specific thing that we are doing is we have 2 separate teams, Team Explore and Team Journey, and on those teams we have K through 5th grade standards, and the students are able to move within that team depending on what their exact academic needs are. And so with our literacy work and our focus specifically on K1-2, getting them to read, we're able to utilize our coach and the connections she's made through the IDOE partnership to really move our students. And the growth we've already seen in just this short of time is amazing. And so I can't wait to honestly see how it continues to grow.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm hearing from this, is that it is a different approach, which I applaud you, because I think you've really, in the culture of your building, your teachers, your staff, and I want to also say you've created some opportunities for collegial, should I say collaboration? That is very unique. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes. So when we decided as a staff that our students needed better across the board, the first thing that I did was made sure that our teachers had enough time to plan, and we created our schedule around that. So every other day our teachers have 2.5 hours to plan together as a team. And so that time is, Dr. Brown was able to come, and Riley Booker came and witnessed a little bit of that today. But our teachers work with interventionists, special ed, ELL, and our coaches and each other. And we really tackle if there are specific students that multiple teachers are seeing, we figure out what is best for them, but we can put all of our minds together to help support every single one of them.
So how did you arrange that? Who helps you? Because we didn't give you additional staff for this additional planning, so how'd you do that?
I just creatively put the schedule together. And so we share our special area teachers, and I worked with the principals of the other buildings that we share those special area teachers with to have them all in the afternoon. We were also able to creatively create a 4th special, and so our students, we were able to make the different groups so that we had that 2.5 hours in the afternoon.
And this is the last question, I promise. So additional collaboration time, working with other buildings, do you also bring in, what's the AMP lab connection and the connection with community partners?
Yes, so that's the whole other side. So our morning is all targeted academic multi-age groups, and it is really cool if you ever want to come see it. We operate by bells. They know exactly where they're going. We have older students with younger students, and they're perfectly fine with that because they know that's what they need. And we've had students express that they know where they need to go because they want to learn. And so that's the morning. In the afternoon is we have that special block, and when they're not in their special block, that's their career block. And so we do reading, writing, and then a specific career block, but it's all around the careers. And so my partnership with Riley to start was just creating the clusters, the career clusters. And so currently we're in the business career cluster. We have partnered with Ferguson Advertising, and they helped us with our last career cluster, and they're going to do, this one is a really cool one, and our students are buzzing because I think they really understand businesses. And we're connecting with their families as well. Their families are going to be able to come to the family night and share their businesses that they have. But the students are creating businesses, either by class or by little group, and then they're going to present to a Shark Tank, which is going to be all of Ferguson Advertising, the CEO and different people, and then they're going to actually win prizes. But I can't say my son's here, and I can't say the prizes yet because that's a surprise.
So
He
again,
also goes
a
to
lot
Adams.
of creativity happening in that space. Cell is known for its creativity as well. So I know perhaps Dr. Brown's been involved with the Cell organization, and I have some background with the Center for Excellence in Leadership of Learning. So again, congratulations on what, not congratulations, thank you for what you're doing in this space. And somehow we need to get your, because if you're learning and you're the students moving that needle of literacy and numeracy, if that is extraordinary, we need to figure out how to move this model perhaps to other places as well. So
Has anyone shown interest in the other elementaries? Now, I might be too early in the game to.
Off the record, yes. So at the showcase, we talked to employees more than we did families, and so we had several principals and teachers come over and ask about it, and they always say, "Why aren't we all doing this?"
Yeah.
So I said,
Well, that's good to
you
hear,
can.
and hopefully it'll be very successful.
I'm worried about this. Are we allowed to have fun?
well, I'm wondering that too. But I will say, and you were there today, I see smiles when I go into this building, which is smiles. I see kids engaged. I see community partners coming in, parents, and you having the Shark Tank thing is just another example of when you engage your kids and you get your parents involved, wow, watch out. I mean, very positive, constructive things happen.
Yeah, so we have our family nights at the end of each cluster, and we have had, I mean, families are waiting in a line outside the door. Our first one, we had 330, I believe, was the total, and we only have 270 kids.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, that's great.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so very much.
Now you get a vote on it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then our last item on our agenda is the resolution. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees pass a resolution to commit to reaching and exceeding a 95% passage rate by the end of grade 3 or before on the iRead 3 assessment by 2027. The Board of School Trustees will transmit a copy of this resolution to the Indiana Department of Education as acknowledgement of their partnership and dedication in reaching and exceeding the 95% passage rate on the iRead 3 assessment by 2027. And Steve, did you want to comment or read the resolution?
Sure. The resolution recognizing Fort Wayne Community Schools' commitment to the state proficiency goal of 95% on the iRead 3 assessment by the year 2027. Whereas 1 in 5 Indiana students have not yet mastered foundational reading skills by the end of 3rd grade. Whereas every student must learn to read and in turn read to learn. Whereas the Indiana Department of Education has set a goal of reaching and exceeding a 95% passage rate on the iRead 3 assessment by 2027. Whereas Fort Wayne Community Schools is dedicated to developing foundational literacy schools for every student. Whereas Fort Wayne Community Schools is dedicated to providing a quality education and learning environment for every student, be it resolved by the Fort Wayne Community Schools Board of School Trustees that the Board of School Trustees recognizes Fort Wayne Community Schools' commitment to reaching and exceeding a 95% passage rate by the end of grade 3 or before on the iRead 3 assessment by 2027, and that the Secretary of the Board of Trustees transmits a copy of this resolution to the Department of Education as acknowledgement of their partnership and dedication in reaching and exceeding the 95% passage rate on the iRead 3 assessment by 2027.
Thank you, Steve.
So be mindful of the word there. We are telling the community and the state that we are behind this effort. So it's a strong effort, and if we can copy what's going on at Adams to our other schools, the excitement that's happening there, it's going to happen.
Absolutely.
So,
Is there a motion on the floor to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Any other comments or questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Then that ends our business portion. And now, tonight's presentation will provide an overview of the literacy implementation to date and an update on the numeracy program review and adoption. Questions will be addressed by Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, Dr. Joe Brown, and Curriculum Coordinators, Tammy Siebel and Vanessa Weiss.
First off, what a fun board meeting. We get to talk to you guys about literacy and numeracy. That was all that was on your agenda, so that's exciting. Thank you, Steve, for bringing that resolution to us. I truly believe that it's just following the dedication that the Department of Education is spending on early literacy, and truly believe that we can get there. It's going to be a lot of work. I think I told our academic coherence team we were at 79% pre-pandemic. So we've got a ways to go, but I'm confident that we're going to get there. Okay, so tonight I am here to give you guys a real quick update on where we're at with the numeracy adoption process, and then I'm going to hand it over for a little bit more engagement from Tammy here. She's got to read you guys part of one of our interactive read-alouds. So real fast, where we're at with the numeracy program review and adoption process. A couple of the big takeaways, and I've spoken with some of you about this, we've made a couple of changes prior to starting the committee work. One of them was getting more teachers at the table. So we invited a primary teacher, an intermediate teacher, and then a special education teacher from every elementary school to be part of the committee. And then we also included each grade levels at the secondary schools. So we've more than doubled the number of teachers that are taking part of this, which is wonderful. The other big piece that we did was reached out personally to all of the teachers that have been involved in curriculum writing. I think that was a big gap last year. We kind of had the curriculum writers working, and then we had the adoption process going on, but the two weren't really talking, so we really wanted them to be at the table during this process. And then finally, and Jennifer, we've spoken about this, we made sure that we included some of our special programs and special schools to be at the table so that they're not forgotten. That includes our behavior support program, and then also some of our special schools like Bunch and Young and some of those. So real fast, again, just the purpose to work through a numeracy program review, build our vision for numeracy, and then adopt resources to meet that vision. It's definitely a shift from the way that most places go about just adopting resources. Typically, it's all the publishers come in, they try to sell you a product, and that's how a decision is made. But we really wanted to slow down, go a little deeper. So we started off back in September just setting that stage for our committee members. Starting off in October, we looked at best practices, the research behind numeracy, and then also what our current data was telling us, especially with the state trends over the past several years. In November, I think at the end of November is our next round of meetings, and we're actually highlighting some of our students, teachers, grade levels, and then also principals that had high growth last year to learn a little bit more about their numeracy beliefs and commitments as we move forward. January, we're really going to be sitting down and developing those belief statements, which will drive our material selection, making sure that they meet the belief statements. We're hoping probably January, February, early March, we're going to pinpoint those resources that we need to meet that vision, and then we'll do the parent and community feedback groups like we did for literacy. And our hope is to come to you guys in April with that recommendation. And in the meantime, we'll be working with an AIP to determine what steps need to happen after that selection is made so that there are no missing pieces. So that's where we're at with numeracy. I don't know if you guys have any questions that you want to ask before I hand it over to Tammy.
Number 6, where we had community feedback there. I know that we did have those for literacy. I'm not sure how well attended those were. Is there something that we can do to, I mean, we're transparent exactly what's out there, what we have, and what we're looking at. So it's important for the community to be able to see that. Are you guys thinking of new ways to?
Absolutely.
Yes,
So yeah, I think I started the week that we had those meetings last year, and that legislation was new. So I think just doing a better job of communicating it with the parent-teacher councils and even reaching out to individual schools to make sure they have representation. So I think we can improve that number.
so I'd add too, since we have been using Facebook Live, something like that, so more virtual, I believe we are thinking about, even with the transportation piece, where they can get into can provide the dialogue with, yes, thought exchange. So that is a tool that we could further use. I'd also ask the question, Dr. Brown, so if everything goes well, so you're looking at presentation to the board in April, determining PL needs, will teachers receive materials before they leave for the summer?
Do you want me to go on record?
Yes?
I mean, that is the intent.
That would be our hope,
That is
yes.
intent. I know that sometimes there, publishers don't
Yeah.
produce and whatever, but to the best of our ability, teachers having materials in hand.
Correct.
Before they leave. Thank you. Okay. It is on record now.
Great. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Tammy.
Don't run too far, Dr. Brown.
He's right here. He's going to stay right there. Good evening. So when we're looking at the elementary literacy adoption, we are so lucky and privileged to have Fontes and Pinnell. The IRAs, which stands for Interactive Read Alouds, the shared reading, the reading and writing mini lessons, the guided reading library, the book clubs, the classroom libraries. It was just a plethora of materials, and teachers are loving it. They're engaging, they're supportive, they allow the kiddos to make connections across the board in all areas of literacy. So the materials that we have this year, I've never seen. I've been around 30 years, and so I know you probably don't think that I could be that old, but they are amazing. And we're so privileged to have those.
So you've done this before,
This,
this process?
actually, no. I have been a classroom teacher for a number of years and then an instructional coach. So I've been involved, but not to this level. So I've never been an elementary literacy coordinator in
You've been
past
involved
adoptions.
in this process.
Yes,
in a
yes,
different role.
yes,
And
definitely.
this feels better than
Oh,
what we-
absolutely.
Why?
Just because of all the materials, the connections that kids have to go deeper with their thinking, it allows them to do more critical thinking with the skills and the standards without even recognizing. Instead of just saying, okay, here's the standard, here's how, this is what we're doing with it, they're embedded within and they're applied multiple times. So they're
how did we
spiraled
do
in
this?
and
That makes a lot of sense. So how did we do this before,
Perfect.
though?
I can't say, before we've always had a basal, and so the materials or the basal stories, some were good, some were engaging, and some maybe not so much. Teachers would use the basal from time to time, but maybe not always all the materials. It was never laid out the way that it's laid out. Fontes and Pinnell is definitely a shift in our literacy curriculum,
And tell me,
in the good way.
tell me what that word basal, what does that mean? I'm not an educator.
Well, in the past, we've had basals. So that means the basal was your reading stories. All your stories were together in a basal, and then you had your teacher manual that would use the basal to support the learning in the in literacy. So now we have books, we have interactive read alouds, which I brought with me today to share with you one of the examples. So now we have all these different interactive read alouds that teachers are saying are engaging, they're fun, the kids are loving them. Again, it gives them lots of opportunities to engage and interact with them. And so then what's happening when we have the engagement? We have the learning. We need to get them engaged before we can actually teach them. And so because of that, that's really helped support the learning in the classroom.
So and I'm a math person, so this is what I'm gathering. A student now is finding their reading material that's interesting to them, and they have choices. And it's based on levels of their literacy, so I may be level whatever, I'll just say, hey, it's Mark's level.
Right.
But Mark needs to move up to this level. So how do I do that? So I read a little bit higher than my level currently, but I also have the science of reading now to support me. So I have the reading component, but I also have, and if you could explain that a little bit. I mean, we spend a lot of, if I look at the number of teachers this summer that were trained in OG, which is up there,
Yep.
Orton,
Yep,
Gillingham.
I was going to get to that.
You're going to get to that.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
phenomenal. And what I've heard, teachers really like that. They would actually like to see perhaps more of the read-alouds or the materials, but we.
Decodables that
Yes.
support the OG.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we have, the amount of funding that we have channeled in this,
Right.
I mean, you look at every one of our elementary schools.
Mm-hmm.
They now have basically libraries, am I right, in
That is correct.
every,
Yes.
sometimes centrally located, but many times located within their own classroom.
Yes, we have, I think every classroom has 150 titles just for independent reading alone. So for all kiddos in each grade level, in each classroom, 150 titles.
So I just say, game on.
Yeah.
Game on now for reading. And let's get there and let's move our kids to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very proud to hear, very proud to say and appreciate the time that teachers spent this summer
Engaging, yep,
engaging
in
in
learning.
this process. And,
Right.
We're not perfect yet. We're not even close to being perfect. But at least we're moving that direction. And I've been some places where they've said, we're going to blow the lid off our achievement. So you heard from Adams Elementary. But I think it's happening in other buildings as well. And, I think it is because you've had a detailed focus with what's going to happen and laying it out, and
Yeah.
you'll get there.
Yep. And one thing I wanted to
You got
say.
5 years to get there. 2027, okay.
20, I got it. All right, so one thing I wanted to come back to when you were talking about the basal too, that one thing I thought about while Dr. Daniel was talking. The basal, then the skills did not always connect with what they were reading. The nice thing about Fontes and Pinnell, the interactive read aloud connects with the reading mini lesson that they do. The reading mini lesson might connect with the shared reading that they're doing. The independent reading, even independent reading can connect with everything that they're doing within that literacy block. So these libraries, the guided reading, there's just connections being made throughout their literacy block this year, which is really nice too, which we didn't have with the basal in the past, not necessarily so. We also have leveled literacy intervention, which are called LLI kits, and that's what interventionists are using, and they're very similar to like what the guided reading looks like in the classroom, except it's specific to intervention strategy, intervention reading. And then we have, like Dr. Daniel mentioned, the word study, Hegarty, and the decodable readers, the Orton Gillingham. It's amazing. It's explicit. It's systematic. It supports the phonics instruction that is happening. Hegarty supports our phonemic awareness. The decodable books go along with the Hegarty.
So
I have go ahead. Go ahead, Ann.
So I'm just gonna say, none of this would make sense to me unless I'd actually spent time in the classroom.
Yes.
And had actually gone to Adams and saw one of the teachers in action using the Hegarty today on the screens. And then as far as you had asked about the difference, and I don't know the difference, I'm not an educator, I'm just a mom. But I spent time in the third grade class and using the Fontes and Pinnell, it seemed like it was really supportive. Like it really gave a lot of supports to the teacher. So when I had to step in, it just went down the list, kind of helped support. We went over reading and it told me different activities we could have. It gave some flexibility, but then also direction, which I thought would be great, especially for new teachers. So again, I don't know what it was like before, but it was a really great system. The kids seemed to enjoy it, whether we did our big reading groups or in our smaller reading groups that were catered towards whatever skill level they were. It challenged them, but
Yes.
it also met them at a level where they felt confident, as they were learning in those smaller groups. So.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. Yes, because that's what we're noticing too. Again, it's that engagement piece. They're engaged with it and they're having fun with it.
Yeah.
And one teacher, I'm just going to share this with you. One teacher said to me during collaborations when I was in their building, she said that her kids couldn't wait to come to school every day to hear what they're going to read. And I was like, I've never heard that before. So that's exciting too, right? So speaking of the components, and just what you were just sharing, if I can get the clicker to work. Okay, so each of the interactive read-alouds that teachers have in their classroom along with the interactive read aloud is an interactive read aloud card that helps assist the read aloud that they're reading each day. Interactive read alouds, there's teachers are sharing one a day in their classrooms. This has goals that they can set, and then it has ideas for questioning throughout the text, and then going beyond the text and about the text, and then opportunities to respond to the text. And it even has, at the back, ways to assess the learning. Each of the interactive read-alouds are put together in a specific text set. The text sets all have themes. So the one I'm going to share with you today, I'm not sure how much time we have. Do we still have about 5 minutes? Okay. So in this one is about, I've never done a read aloud at a podium, so are you okay if I step away from the podium? Okay.
Sure.
And if you want to sit on the floor. Oh, TV has to hear me, sorry, I have to stay here. Okay, this will be different, but if you want to sit on the floor, you still can. I'm going to engage you in the interactive. Okay, so this is an example of a read aloud from a 3rd grade text set in the theme of friendship. All right, but it also, I will tell you how it connects within the reading mini lesson and how the teachers use this book to engage them and go deeper with their thinking. Okay, so Enemy Pie, look at the title. What do you think Enemy Pie might be about? Talk to your partner just left, but maybe talk to your partner for a minute and maybe discuss for a second what you think Enemy Pie is all about.
We're gonna make the pie for their enemies. Right. Maybe being kind to
Something,
someone
it's not
kind
pizza.
And I'll try not to cover up the cover.
That's something.
All right,
Vegetables.
who wants to share? Anybody? Any ideas? Who can tell me what an enemy is? What is
I think it's a vegetarian pizza.
You think it's a vegetarian pizza? Would that be bad for you?
I think kids would.
One without meat?
For a person who's a meat lover.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Any other guesses? Okay, here we go. It should have been a perfect summer. My dad helped me build a tree house in our backyard. My sister was at camp for 3 whole weeks, and I was on the best baseball team in town. It should have been a perfect summer, but it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Any ideas why it might not have been? It was all good until Jeremy Ross moved into the neighborhood, right next door to my best friend Stanley. I did not like Jeremy Ross. He laughed at me when he struck me out in a baseball game. He had a party on his trampoline and I wasn't even invited. But my best friend Stanley was. Jeremy Ross was the one and only person on my enemy list, and I never even had an enemy list before until he moved into the neighborhood. But as soon as he came along, I needed one. I hung it up in my treehouse where Jeremy Ross was not allowed to go. Sorry, I hate having. Jeff, can you see okay? Dad understood stuff like enemies. He told me that when he was my age, he had enemies too, but he knew of a way to get rid of them. I asked him to tell me how. Well, tell you how, I'll show you how, he said, and he pulled a really old recipe book off the kitchen shelf. Inside there was a worn out scrap of paper with faded writing. Dad held it up and squinted at it. Enemy pie, he said, satisfied. Now, you may be wondering, what was exactly in enemy pie, because I was wondering too. But Dad said the recipe was so secret he couldn't even tell me. I decided it must be magic. I begged him to tell me something, anything. I will tell you this, he said. Enemy pie is the fastest known way to get rid of enemies. Now, of course, this really got my curiosity working. What kinds of things, disgusting things, would I put into a pie for enemy? I brought Dad some weeds from the garden, but he just shook his head no. I brought him some earthworms and rocks, and he said no. I gave him the gum I'd been chewing on all morning, and he said no. He just gave it right back to me. What do you think? Turn and talk to your partner, and think, what do you think might be an enemy pie? What do you think might enemy pie be all about?
Something to make sense.
Or how do you think it might work? Anyone want to share out? Jack, any ideas?
So my partner and I think it's going to be a good pie, a sweet pie.
You think it's going to be a sweet pie?
Yes.
Okay, why do you think that?
Because that's the quickest way to make friends out of an enemy is to give them a good gift.
Oh, to give them a, okay.
I bake a lot of pies.
I was gonna, oh, good. That's good to know. Anyone else have anything different that you and your partner talked about? All right, so it's, for sake of time, I'll just share with you quickly the middle of it, and then I'm just going to read you the last couple pages. So he goes outside to play because his dad said that you can't watch. It will take too long, so just go out and play for a little bit. But then he also tells him he has to go over to his enemy's house and ask him to come outside and play with him. And he was like, no way. There's no way I can do that. But he does it because that's the best way to get the enemy to come back to the house to eat the enemy pie. So he goes outside. He goes over to his house. His friend's name is Jeremy. He's very shocked to see him at his door because Jeremy is onto the fact that he does not like him. And so they go outside, though, and start playing. And pretty soon they discover they're having a lot of fun. And he's kind of thinking, hey, maybe Jeremy's not quite so bad after all. And he invites Jeremy then back to his house. And then what happens, though? Jeremy notices the treehouse. Do you remember what was on the treehouse? Yep. So when he said, hey, can we go in? He asked, I knew he was going to ask me that. But he was the top person, the only person, my one and only enemy list. And enemies aren't allowed in my treehouse. But he did teach me to throw a boomerang, and he did have me over for lunch, and he did let me play on his trampoline. He wasn't being a very good enemy. Okay, I said, but hang on a minute. What do you think he's going to go do? Whip off that? Think so? Jack, you think that? Yep. Yeah. So then Dad comes up to get them. They come back to the table. Dad fixes macaroni and cheese. They eat the macaroni and cheese, and now comes time for the enemy pie. Dad, I said, it sure is nice having a new friend in the neighborhood, right, Dad? I was trying to get his attention and trying to tell him that Jeremy Ross was no longer my enemy. But Dad only smiled and nodded. I think he thought I was just pretending. And this is my favorite part. Dad dished up 3 plates side by side with big pieces of pie and giant scoops of ice cream. He passed one to me and one to Jeremy. Wow, Jeremy said, looking at his pie. My dad never made pies like this. It was at this point that I just started to panic. I didn't want Jeremy to eat enemy pie. He was my friend. I couldn't let him eat it. So, Jeremy, don't. It's bad pie. I think it's poisonous or something. Jeremy's fork stopped before reaching his mouth. He crumpled his eyebrows and looked at me funny. I felt relieved. I had just saved his life. I was his hero. Why do you think he didn't want Jeremy to eat the pie?
He would have felt bad.
He would have felt bad? Is the pie bad? But then he notices how his dad is eating the pie, and his dad's hair is not falling out, and his dad looks okay, and he's not turning green. So then he decides it's okay. And then at the end, they end up going out and having fun. As for enemy pie, I still don't know how to make it. I still wonder if enemies really do hate it, or if their hair falls out, or their breath turns bad. But I don't know if I'll ever get an answer because I just lost my best friend. Were you surprised at the ending?
Yeah.
A little bit? All right, so that is just an example of how engaging this is. Again, this is a 3rd grade sample. The interactive read aloud card continues to support, but not just enemy pie, but all the texts that are in that text set under the theme of friendship. And then in the reading mini lesson that this particular text goes along with, it supports problem and solution, characterization, and also friendship. Okay, any questions?
I just have one before you go, and it's like way back to something you said a while ago, but you said that teachers are loving it. How do we know that? Aside from you just talking to them, but how do we know that? Do we survey them? How do we know that?
We're going to, actually, that's a great question because we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I can tell you that we all go to collaborations in all of our buildings, so we're attending that. And so through those collaborations and discussions, teachers have shared that with us multiple times. And so I'm just, each of us have different buildings that we support, and in that support, that's when it's been shared with us. But we also have literacy feedback groups that Vanessa's going to share with you a little bit more about. And that is also another way that we know that teachers are liking them. And then we're in the buildings all the time. So we're in classrooms, we're in teacher collaboration. So that's one way. And just opportunities to give us feedback. Also coach sessions too. We support those as well. We help the PL department in the coaching PL days. So when we talk about literacy during that time, that's when we get a lot of feedback from coaches too.
So I can say I also venture into buildings. Buildings are at different places. And I'd like to say, I would love for her to help me if I was a teacher, if I was a building principal. But people are in different places, and it's going to take some time, I think, for this to land and for people to really buy into it. But again, I think your approach you're very positive, very helpful, and I think if there's one thing that we can hopefully continue to reiterate with our teachers and our building principals, they are here to help as a resource. I don't see being critical here. I see how can we help you? And then hopefully you start to see the learning, and it's like, okay. Plus I hope we have this consistent. We consistently implement this, and we don't say, oh, guess what? In 2 or 3 years, we're going to do something different. So it's staying to the course on some of these things. But I think we've landed in a very good place. We have a strong foundation, and it's now how do you continue to implement this district-wide consistently? But these people are truly resources, and we're here to help and to assist. And I think that's part of as we work on our culture, that's what we're about. So again, great job on that. I really like the story.
Thank you.
All right, I don't have anything quite as exciting as an interactive read aloud, but secondary literacy has also gone through an adoption. So our core adoption is the HMH into literature textbooks, and that also comes with a subscription to what's called Writable, which is an online software piece that allows students to go in and type directly into the program. It gives grammar feedback and also some revision suggestions, similar to what you'd see in a word processing program, but also allows teachers to check for plagiarism. So some of our high school age students maybe sometimes struggle with that, so it allows teachers to quickly kind of look through and see any issues with plagiarism. And we've also got some select novels this year with our adoption. In addition to just our regular 6 through 12 language arts classes, we have also brought in new materials for our interventions. There are new language arts labs in the grades 6 through 8 using Read 180 or System 44. System 44 is for our lowest readers in the middle school level. Read 180 is just below grade level or grade level. And we're also using Waggle, which is an online program for skills that's specifically designed for our on grade level or above students in those labs. So again, Tammy kind of stole my thunder with all these celebrations. So
They're worth repeating.
They are worth repeating. They are worth repeating. So last year, the instructional support was really focused on small group instruction. So the guided reading that's being used in elementary and also the small group instruction being used in our interventions in the middle school really helps to reinforce those ideas of just small group instruction and how to provide the support that's needed for groups of students. So breaking those students apart, potentially by level or need, and then really working toward giving them those skills that they need. We continue as a department to do our literacy focus in our leadership and instructional coach professional learning, trying to keep that at the forefront of everybody's mind. So bringing it up every month, every time we get a chance, we talk about what's happening in literacy. Talked about a lot of building supports. So I did a quick tally to see our team of 9 has been out to buildings at least 400 times this year. So we've done at least 400 building visits in the course of the school year so far with our team. And we're providing support in collaborations. We're providing teacher support. We're working with coaches. Really, it's different in every building that we go to, just depending on what the need is. We've also created look-for documents to help kind of guide what it should be looking like in a classroom. So this is for our teachers, this is for our coaches, this is for our administrators to see, as we've adopted these new resources, what classroom instruction really should look like and have some ideas of what that looks like. So this is an example of our elementary look-for document. It's kind of hard to see, but in each category, so the shared readings, the interactive read-alouds, each group, each category has some information, has videos linked for some examples so that you really get an idea of what you're looking for in the classroom instruction. This is the elementary version, and secondary also has a version. So we have those. Before I guess we're done, right?
No.
Oh, that's right. Tammy's got the next. So before I pass it over to Tammy, do you have any questions?
How do you excite a generation of young people who may not own a book or understand what a magazine is? I was at the AMP lab and talking to some young musicians and trying to relate to them, and talked about Rolling Stone magazine, and I'm not sure they even know what the hell I was talking about.
Yeah.
So I think it really comes down to providing options, providing some diversity in the text. No longer are we just focused on those kind of old dudes who wrote hundreds of years ago for the canon. We're providing diversity in our textbooks. Our Read 180 program, those texts are very, very engaging. Our first unit was about student activism, and the students really got on board, and we're excited to read those texts. So providing texts that are interesting to our students is like the first battle, and then, then supporting them with that reading. But no one wants to read anything that's not interesting, so we need to take that step.
Right. A ways back in the mid-'80s, the district invited authors to town. Do we still do that?
To my knowledge, I don't think so.
Young authors.
It brought excitement to our students, and I will tell you that in the mid-'80s, my daughter, who still has the program from the day, talked about meeting a young author by the name of Dave Pilkey, who went on to write the Dogman series, and found a little information about Dave. He spells his first name D-A-V because in one of his first jobs at a Pizza Hut, they misspelled his name, and the Pizza Hut tag said D-A-V, and so he just decided to keep that as his author's name. But I'm wondering if we do any certain book fairs where you can actually buy a book or bring in authors to try to encourage and excite our students about reading.
I do know that we are doing book fairs in many of the libraries. In the past few weeks, I've seen them set up in some libraries, so I know that students are at least exposed to those opportunities to get books. And
I'd love
other
to see us
reading
bring
materials.
in the next Dave Pilkey.
Croninger Elementary does. They, up until COVID time, their PTA has always contributed to having an author. One of their teachers was kind of the head of that and always brought an author in each year, because my children have a lot of the books that have came in from well-known authors. So I think that it's a per school basis kind of thing, but they do.
We are all new to our position, so we'll look into that and get back to you.
I have a question.
Good answer.
How many interventionists are in our middle schools, and I did see lab, so does that mean that we have, are we doing that double, I don't want to call it two language arts, but a language arts and then a lab for those who need it, and is that where the intervention is coming into play? or-
So this year, our sixth graders are all participating in that language arts lab. And it's using the Read 180 materials for the whole and small group instruction with some opportunities to differentiate there. They're also using the waggle if above or at grade level. And then any students below grade level will have those Read 180 supports. So that's sixth grade across the board. And then our seventh and eighth grade students are in that language arts lab based on need. So if they're reading below grade level, they're taking that language arts lab class.
So will that continue then, the cycle as well? So if a child is at or above, they no longer for the next year need to be in a language arts and a lab?
That is, I believe, the plan. So like seventh and eighth graders would be able to graduate out of that reading comprehension support.
Okay, which would open up another elective or something for that child? Okay. Because that's been a concern of mine since we've done double classes and certain things. Okay, thank you.
And also, that's been funded through ESSER, so you know there's a cliff. So ideally, we'd want to move all of our students to be at grade level, so they wouldn't necessarily need that. So you can get more into electives or whatever we want to do with that. So
So
again,
then do we, okay, so once we've passed that and we don't have that, do we have any will we have any because I don't remember ever having a middle school interventionist for reading.
So I'll say that interventions absolutely will continue. Let's just hope it's not a large percentage of students. So that's what we're dealing with now, and we'll have to, hopefully, with the elementary program, seeing more and more students at grade level when they enter sixth grade, but you'll always will have some intervention, because we have our students are very mobile and coming from other places. So we know that's going to happen, and how are we going to serve those kids? So they can't jump right into where the current, where the class is at their grade level. They may need another type of intervention. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I was just going to say a lot of this will depend on allocations that we have, especially at the middle school level. Definitely looking at those kids that are performing at and above grade level not needing this anymore, which will be a shift from years past. So that allocation number will go down, but we'll be working on all of that during as we look at sustaining a lot of this after ESSER.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have one more slide, then we're done.
Okay, so now when we're just looking at literacy next steps and opportunities for growth, we're going to continue to solicit teacher feedback through the year to make sure that we're looking at all the components and how we can continue to improve literacy for not just for the rest of this year, but also for future years, especially starting next year too. We're going to become more laser focused and diving into that middle of the year data and looking after winter break, once we collect all of that, and looking at the standards and the strategies and the skills that are within our literacy, and that's K through 12. We're also working assessments to make sure that they're better aligned, with our priority standards, and then using our adopted literacy resources to increase our literacy focus across all areas, content areas, science, social studies, etc.
I have another question real quick before you all leave. So you're a wonderful resource. Are you individually, your groups, you said that you had a team of 9 for some building supports of team of 9, and I'm sure there's more for elementary and such. Are you actually in the classrooms with the kids, or are these supports just for the teachers? So, I mean, do you visit the classrooms, or does your curriculum team visit the classroom and actually see how these things are being implemented?
So it depends on the building. So speaking for myself and for elementary, we're in the classrooms. Sometimes we're modeling in classrooms. We're asked to model. We also, again, like I said before, we go to the teacher collaborations. Again, it's just depending on how much involvement the school is asking. Some schools are involved more than others, honestly. So it just kind of depends. But yeah, we are in the classrooms when we can. but we are more involved in the teacher collaborations and the planning and the supporting. And professional learning also in the early mornings at the elementary.
I'm just asking that because in the past I've heard people say, okay, the people downtown are implementing things and they're not in our classrooms. So they don't know how these things are being, how they're working.
Right.
And I think that that's a support. Everything sounds wonderful. I just want it to make sure that it is wonderful and that it is that those teachers feel supported. They feel like what's coming to them is helpful. Like I said, everything sounds wonderful. So I just am asking that I'd love to see everybody in our entire district who works here substitute some time and spend that day in the classroom like Raleigh we had a chance to do as a board member. And I know that Noah's been in the classroom and Ann helped, but I'd like to see the work that we're doing here and the things that the ESSER dollars that we've been using and helping us move that needle and everybody help to support that.
Yes, I couldn't agree more.
So,
Yeah, we love getting in the classroom, so when we can, we definitely will.
Great.
And do.
Thank you.
Check in real fast, sorry. I think one of the, Tammy said everybody loves the resources, but that's not to say, just like we outlined here, the next steps and opportunities for growth. This is also the 4th year in a row, I believe, that there's been significant changes to the language arts curriculum. So there is a lot of frustration there. So trying to earn their trust as we support this is definitely work that we're trying to do as a team.
And I know that's one of our goals as well for everybody is that support and that culture. And you're right. Because I've had a student who's had reiterations of multiple things throughout their course. And I can't tell you how many times it's changed. So I would like for us to find something that's working and stick with it.
Absolutely. There are adjustments that need to be made as we look at when we merged Curriculum 2.0 with the Pontus and Pinnell resources, especially at the elementary level. But that's work that we're trying to do as the year goes. So then there are no changes come August.
Great. Well, things sound exciting. So thank you very much for putting this all together tonight for us.
And thank you for reading to us. we at our study connection, we always read before we go to our kids. And I always tell everybody that I think the adults appreciate the story being read more than the kids do. It's not too often you get a story read to you. So.
Adults get to have fun too.
Exactly.
Thank you. I appreciate your enthusiasm. I love reading. I buy books and I even read some of them. Absolute truth.
Some of them, right? Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are ready for board comments.
My mother passed away last week, and got to share a story with you. She dropped out of high school her junior year to get married. She was 19 when she married my father in 1947. And she later said that she regretted not getting married, but dropping out of high school, and that every year that we went back to school, it just brought back that feeling of regret. So when we got older, she decided that she would go to what was then called night school, and got perfect grades, straight A, was asked to be the speaker at the graduation ceremony at Gary Roosevelt High School. And she graduated one day before me in 1967. She was very proud of her kids. The 4 that lived all went to college and got degrees, and she was one heck of a mom. Worked for the Gary Public Schools. She was a baker and then later a bilingual teacher's aide.
We're sorry for your loss. You sound like a wonderful woman.
Sorry, Steve. I would like to shout out to all those parents who went to the transportation meeting so far. And I know that we have some other coming up, and I think that they're a wonderful opportunity for the community and the parents and even the teachers and staff to go and listen to, it's not a proposal yet, but the information that they're providing to be able to create the proposal for us. And it does give us lots of information of why things and how things have to be and how, the way it works in order for us to get our kids to school on time. And I think that's a real big misconception out there for a lot of parents, like, why can't we just run this bus at this time and get this bus here at this time and everything work great? And there's a lot of logistics that go into that. And I think that that meeting kind of will bring clarification. And there's a lot of talk about what's going on in those different options. But if you would attend the meeting and listen to that information, I think you would get a better idea of what we're up against and how we can best serve our children. So I do encourage on those, I think there's 3 more meetings. And there is one at 1 o'clock, so if somebody needs a daytime, I encourage you to go to that. Also, I was excited to see all those Veterans Day events that were happening. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend this year. I've been to several of them because my children have been in school, and they're just wonderful opportunities to thank our servicemen for the work that they've done, and also to provide our children that opportunity to see what that's all about. So I know that Ms. Coleman over there had attended a few, and everybody in this room maybe have attended some more. So they were in Raleigh, gave us some service back. And then lastly, just quickly, I have to have a shout out to my alma mater, Snyder High School. The Panthers are marching on to semi-state for football, so go Panthers. Noah's not here, so I have to pick up his slack.
He definitely would have said something. I don't know if everyone knows, but in my free time, I picked up PTA president as part of my list of duties. And so I just wanted to encourage everyone to join the PTA or the PTSA or PTO, whatever acronym your school uses. Our PTAs work really hard to support our students and our teachers in our buildings. I have to share this story so that you all know how big of a nerd I am. My mom was the classroom teacher at Irwin when I was there. And I remember it was before winter break, and she got us pizzas from Pizza Hut, but she had them cut them into Christmas trees. And it literally like changed my whole life. I still like remember it to this day, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, your mom's so cool. And that day literally birthed my interest in being a PTA mom. So I wanted to be a PTA mom since elementary school. So just fulfilling the dream, and have to thank my mom for being so involved. But again, our PTAs just do an incredible job of supporting our schools, our buildings, our teachers. And so I encourage everybody to join your building PTA. Thank you.
So Dr. Brown mentioned that he and I were able to visit Adams Elementary today, and I'm even more excited about what's going on in that school than I was when Principal Holland first proposed this change. One of the things that really stood out to me on this particular visit, well, 2 things. First of all, Dr. Brown is amazing with kids. Like, he completely lights up when he gets to interact with them, and that just tickled me so much. The second thing was the collaboration room that the teachers have at Adams. It is amazing. We were able to sit and watch them, which I said was kind of weird, so I wanted to tiptoe out, but just observe them talking together, collaborating on what's going on with different students. They have a cute little coffee bar in there too, and just nice seating. But to have that space for them, one of the things that Dr. Daniel has talked about over and over and over again with us and in the community is wellness. And so this is a space where they're able to actually enjoy that, to have that 2.5 hours to debrief, to collaborate, to step away, to take care of themselves and get ready just to go back into it. So I absolutely love that. Super excited to see the tremendous growth and the closing of the gaps there at that school, and what Principal Holland is doing there. And then also Maria, and I think Jan brought up the Veterans Day programs. So I was invited as a board member, but I couldn't attend because we had board officers meeting. And so Casey Carr, who puts that program on every single, for the past few years, I think, amazing job, asked me to do makeup. And so I went there before our officers meeting and was able to meet some of the veterans and give back by doing makeup. It was a wonderful program. So many community partners there to really celebrate and appreciate and provide services for our veterans. So shout out to Casey Carr for putting that together. That's all I have.
Dr. Daniel?
So are you going to speak a little bit about the meeting this morning?
Go ahead.
Want me
I
to?
wasn't going
Okay,
to.
so we had a community meeting this morning. Charles put this together. It's our second meeting in regards to safety and behavior in our district, and I think it was very well attended. We had our various leaders in regards to law enforcement, the juvenile system, detention system, but we also had some, I'll say, leaders from from organizations such as the Peacemaker Group at Southside, or I think Reverend Terry was here this morning representing. We had Eric Headley here as well, talking about those various things the city is doing from a united front standpoint. I'll just say the overall theme was we need to do something differently, and let's get to this action. So you may see some things in your packets. I think Raleigh's going to send this to you just in a very short while in regards to, yes, some technology things, but it still comes down to mentoring students, one-on-one, or small groups. And how do we continue to foster that and have even students leading students, so the students, fifth graders assisting kindergarten, first graders, or high school and so forth. So us coming together, I think we're going to meet again December 19th. Continue that follow-up. There is some legislation that we're posing, some thoughts in regards to amending maybe, and so we're going to present that to our legislators and see if there's someone who will carry that. So we'll be talking with Justin Swanson soon about that. I think he's already informed of it, but who do we make the contact with? And that might be in regards to students on our grounds, even if you're 18 years of age. We're asking, please amend the law so those students are not legally able to have a weapon on school property in the parking lots. As it right now, that is permissible, which I don't think that's the intent of the law. So we're going after 21-year-olds or younger on our school property. We may have to negotiate a bit, but I'll just say trying to figure that out, because our opinion is we don't need any weapons on our school property.
Yep.
So that's where we're heading, but I was Ann, you may want to comment a bit about that as well. I thought this morning was an excellent session. We're going to be meeting in leadership. Is that this week?
Yep.
Wow.
Wednesday.
Okay. So leadership will be meeting this week. We have Judge Trevino coming to be part of the discussion on how we can be very, shall I say, in sync and going down the same direction, i.e. examining our use of, quote, discipline. Maybe it needs to be linked closer to what we're doing in our juvenile system, and quite frankly, having, just as we're doing in the academic side with multiple interventions, we have the same thing for students in regards to behavior. So though that's moving, I'm very pleased with where that's heading, and we will, I think one of the gentlemen said, you may remember him, John Weicker, there is a reason you need to have consequences. But consequences means to me, consequences are for students to learn, and we guide those, and then we never give up on a kid. So we bring those back, but there has to be some level of I'll say, interventions that are truly meaningful for our kids. And we work that in the system, which may mean we need to, we may need to rethink some capacity issues. But anyway, so I'll just say, we're on our way. Please, this is our second meeting. We talked about SROs as well, the need perhaps of some additional SROs in our buildings, where they would be placed, how they would be placed, that sort of thing. Also, I think some of you have been very interested in this. How do we handle our crisis situations? What are we doing in regards to our facilities? How is that being communicated with our staff? Again, using some national consultants in that area that are, again, widely known. John remembered the gentleman very well. But anyway, that being very specific and well planned. So, as you heard today's news, what's happening in some universities across the country, again, we have to do our level best, and the first and best deterrent is relationship with kids. So how do we develop those relationships? How do we expand on those relationships? And then work with our leaders in our community, those who work with, juveniles, those who work with our police force and so forth. How are we really going to come together and make this happen? So a plan's evolving, which I'm very, very pleased with, and we'll see where it takes us. And hopefully, we have some actual implementation plans as early as the second semester. Lastly, also, what are we doing in regards to conscious discipline in our elementary schools, restorative practice in our secondary schools? So again, a huge PL piece. It's not going to happen overnight. It's a tremendous amount of training, and also, what do we really see this, what's really FWCS, what does that look in FWCS? So we'll keep you informed on that one, because that is a huge, huge piece of our academics and behavior as we look at the quadrilateral, right, Jack? It's quadrilateral on it, yes. Not the pyramid, but now the quadrilateral. So.
Well, I just wanted to appreciate the leadership you've taken on this. You know that our board is behind you on this with respect to student safety and maintaining the integrity of the educational process in our buildings, and we have to be there.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add, but I did send out notes that I took from our meeting to the other board members, so you can see some of the strategies that we want to implement and things like that, and some of the safety things that we want to pilot and whatnot. So, and a lot of that it's also in what you'll receive from Raleigh as well. So, and she did a good job of getting some videos and things like that. So that was great. I mean, she was very in depth on what she did, so that was very helpful, and I just stole those and put them in my notes. So. But I also wanted to give a shout out to our education reporter, Ashley. She is doing a series on diversity in schools, and I believe it started with a essay competition for high school students. And so they've judged those, and they showed the winners. I can't remember if it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, or a couple Sundays ago, in the paper, and then just some write-ups from her about just different students' experiences and teachers and other people in the community. It's been a great piece. I think there's going to be more next Sunday. So if you haven't looked at those, please take a look. It's just really eye-opening, helps us to build empathy for those students who are not like we are. It's been a great series, so I really appreciate that. And that is all I have. So is there a motion on the floor to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Ellie. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?